In general, what is an interviewer looking out for when you take an interview, especially like round two onwards? A, do you have a base amount of knowledge? People don't have to handhold you for months so that you just like get an understanding of what is going on in the tech side, right? People will help you. There is some handholding and like whatever, but it cannot be from zero. That's one thing they're checking. Second, can you connect the dots quickly, right? As the joke says, right? To Google, people don't pay you money. People pay you money to see what are you googling. Like, do you even know what you're googling in Stack Overflow? Connecting the dots. Right? So if someone says, let's say you join as a front end guy, can you very quickly piece together how the Android app, the front end and the back end will behave, so that you don't need to go and ask 10 people 10 different क्या बोलते हैं 10 different instructions, so that three people don't have to handhold you and guide you. Can you yourself figure out the bigger picture, right? That's the second thing they're checking, even in the interview. And the third thing, do you take ownership? Are you genuinely concerned about the work you do on a daily basis? If you're a fresher, right, if you're from college, the project that you do, if you can't explain it, if you say confidently, I built like some kind of a AR/VR scanning software, and someone just asks you what is the difference between AR and VR, and you cannot answer that, that's a minus one right there. Okay. So these three things are generic stuff. Do you have a base level of knowledge? Can you connect the dots quickly? And do you take ownership for what you have done till now? Hannah, this is what they'll be testing throughout the interviews. And this is what they need when you join as an employee. What are like very specific concrete topics though? These are very abstract things, whatever I said. Let's get into specifics. Right? I won't go into detail here. I'm sure you can read this slide. Slide is visible, right? Bharat? Like nothing
Yeah,
blocking.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't worry. Yep.
Okay. You guys go through this. But I'll say it in very like two word briefs. Huh? DSL Go, people will ask. Not like Amazon, Microsoft level DSL Go with like some deep red queen problem and stuff. Just enough that you don't make really noob mistakes. Like for example, if you want to find out whether a customer ID exists in a list, Zomato does 15 lakh deliveries a day, even right now, even in COVID. 15 lakh, like 15 lakh deliveries are going on. You need to know whether a customer has been served today, right? If you just go through our linked list end to end, that's an O of N search. So that's like, even if you assume like some nanoseconds per search, still searching through 15 lakh entries is going to take you minutes. That's not feasible. You, the simplest thing you can do is, for those of you who have studied, like read your data structures here, the simplest thing you can do is either a hash or a set. A set is basically just a hash map. That's an O of one search. You're guaranteed to get whether the user has transacted today or not in less than a second, always, no matter how many orders are going on, right? Stuff like this is important, because this does mean that you're not going to, bring down the system with poor performance. So basic DSL, not Microsoft Red Queen level, but enough that you don't bring down the system. There's usually a take-home assignment. There is some basic coding skills. Do you even know how to code? That's going to be checked. In front end, JavaScript is the dominant force. Do you know enough JavaScript to pull together a front end? Certainly, it will be asked. Backend, mostly people will be, if whatever I put in stars here, right, in this slide, wherever you see a star, that's for people who have maybe 1 or 2 years worth equivalent experience. So anyone who has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of experience, anything in the slide that has stars, it's going to be asked. If you're a college fresher, though, no, it won't be. Mostly, it won't be. Um, but you are certainly going to be asked about basic HTTP stuff, like how does a request even go into the system. I'm talking about backend here. DevOps, no, freshers don't usually get asked DevOps interviews. It's all related to deployment, and this is a job profile you take up in the company after you spend like 5 years, 5 months, 6 months in a place. You figure out if you want to be DevOps, so it's not even going to be asked to you. But yeah, the thing even in DevOps that they ask is, can you deploy an app from your computer to the AWS GCP cloud? Can it run in the internet? Can your app run in the internet? That's what they will check. Right. Coding assignments. Let's talk about this. Um, a coding assignment will be something very simple, like build a parking lot or build an Instagram clone. What are they trying to check here? It's not the fact that you have built a parking. What's a parking lot, right? Cars go in, cars go out, ticket is given. Two cars cannot be in the same parking spot, etc., etc. You can extrapolate. What are they really? What is the interviewer? What am I personally or my colleagues in Zomato Udaan checking when you do this problem? Right? Parking lot is just an example. You can get anything. Um, what are we checking? Two things, and two things only. A, do you even have enough knowledge uh, in terms of tech to even build a small app quickly? Will you have to Google everything from the ground up? How input is read from the command line, how, a class, or some things are like just, you know, you should hit the ground running on certain amount of knowledge in terms of writing code. That's one thing. But the other thing is clarity. Do you ask enough questions to get a very, very clear idea of the problem? If someone says build a parking lot and you just start, like you didn't even ask a single question, you went ahead. Did you ask whether trucks can be part of the parking lot? Can you will you allow big trucks and buses? Will there be multiple levels of parking, or is it just like a football like field sort of a place where cars are there? Is there a ticketing system? Is there money charged for the ticket? These kind of very basic understanding of what you're building, if you don't ask that, that's a very clear sign that in the company also you will not ask questions. You will not really try to figure out what the customer wants, right? What the end user wants. So that's one thing they are checking. And also, have you thought about future scenario, right? You're not going to build 100% sellable product in a 1 hour interview. Have you still taken provisions to make sure it is extendable? Can you add new stuff to it after the interview? That's also one thing they'll be checking. And what scenarios have you thought of, right? What kind of use cases come up where your assumptions break down? Have you even thought of that? Have you said, okay, okay, I have 1 hour. These are the decisions. These are the choices I can make on this parking lot. Ideally, it should be like this, but I don't have the time. I'll move on. Have you even thought about that? That's one thing they will also check, right? Okay. For anyone who is a bit experienced, 2 3 years, this is the most important thing. Are you balancing performance, maintainability, and extensibility? Can you extend your code? Can someone else read it and understand what's going on? Is it performant? Is it like efficient enough? Now, we don't really care if you are a college fresher. We don't expect you to understand this balance well. But if you are like in the industry for some time, yeah, man, this will come. Okay, moving on. What are they not looking for? Um, Inside knowledge, right? We have a lot of candidates who come and say, I understand PHP's internals end to end. Okay, that's awesome, but we use Ruby. How much will that help, right? If you understand why PHP, the language, took certain decisions, why it is different from Python in certain ways, right? Why Ruby and PHP are not the same. If you understand these things, they're far more helpful than you being a WordPress guru, right? Or if you, for example, if you say that I understand JavaScript's promises perfectly, that's awesome. No doubt that's valuable. Do you even understand why promises come into the picture, where the JavaScript event loop allows asynchronous? Why can you write, how can you write asynchronous code in JavaScript so easily, but you cannot, for example, in C? It takes much more effort to handle mutexes and semaphores, right? Because of the JavaScript event loop, because it's concurrent code, not parallel code. If you understand stuff like that, that's infinitely more valuable for an interviewer to gauge you, right? I've given some examples here. This slide just is all about that. Another thing I would say is we have a lot of candidates coming in from certain telecom companies, maybe Nokia, etc. They will quote that they've used this particular tool for 3 years. Like this one tool, I'm a guru of. It's a proprietary tool built by Nokia, for example, or IBM or VMware, कुछ भी ले लो, like VMware also. That's all. That's awesome. But how does it help us, right? We are a web development shop. Some testing tool Nokia uses is not going to help us at all. So deep knowledge of stuff that is very specific to your domain is not going to be very helpful in that interview. It's not even going to score brownie points, honestly. If you know the fundamentals and the specifics, if you understand the JavaScript event loop, for example, and the promises ka internals, that is a killer combo. That a recruiter will love. But just the specifics without the fundamentals don't hold much value. है ना? ठीक है. Don't. Don't jump to a solution immediately. We talked about this when we were discussing the parking lot thing. Don't, if someone says, for example, how can you sort a binary tree? It's a really, क्या बोलते हैं, cliched question they will usually ask. How do you sort a binary tree or something like that? Give yourself a few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes to think about it. Don't immediately jump to a solution. If someone says build a parking lot, right? Take 2 minutes to consider what kind of parking lot, what cars are allowed. Is it charging money? Is it government parking lot? Take few minutes. If you jump to the solution directly, right, that shows impatience, and that's not a good sign to have. Right. The opposite of that is never get stuck. I have actually lost many interviews because of this. I kind of like when I started out IBBO. I remember IBBO. I specifically lost that that interview because I spent about 15 minutes trying to optimize a problem. The startups don't want that. They want you to come up with a very decently good solution and try to figure out how you can do better. But they don't want you to get stuck on the perfect solution, which may or may come, which may or may not come. You never know. It may never come to you, the perfect solution, right? So don't get stuck. If you spend 2-3 minutes on a solution which is in your head, just ask the interviewer, hey, this is what I have. Can we move on? Like, can I come up with a very, bacha wala naive solution and try to figure out a better from there? And 99% of the time, the interviewer will say that's okay because they're more concerned about how you think of something and figure out on the way. Okay. Oh yeah, never be overconfident with knowledge of a particular topic. If you say that I understand concurrency perfectly with a lot of confidence, all questions will be on concurrency after that. It will be like, how does Golang do multiple coroutine concurrency? And how does, for example, JavaScript do concurrency with the event flow? And they will go like deep technical on that. So only be really, really confident about a topic when you're 100% sure you can answer a bombardment of questions on it. At least 3-4 questions will come. I'm not saying don't be underconfident, or I'm not saying don't be unconfident. Be confident. There are things you will certainly know, but you know, don't be overconfident on it. Don't challenge the interviewer that you know better, right? Okay. Never beat around the bush. It's not a class 12 ka viva where like teacher asks you something and you have to like give some answer. Don't do that. The interviewer is going to get really pissed very, very soon. If you don't know the answer, like, okay, I don't know the answer. Can you ask me something else? Simple as that. Okay. Oh yeah, this is not related to tech, but it is something we have very often noticed. Don't be over formal. Don't start the interview with the interviewer be like, sir, hello, sir, good morning. Just don't treat the interviewer like a school teacher. You have to be polite. You have to be professional. But the person at the other end taking your interview is not some like 60-year-old guy like in a 20-year-old company trying to like with like gray hair trying to judge you. He's not a school teacher. He or she is not a school teacher, right? It's just like some 30-year-old person like me, man. The way I'm talking to you right now in this presentation is how they'll talk to you even in the interview. So be formal. I mean, be professional, be polite, but don't do the whole sir like super formal thing. है ना? Be polite and professional. ठीक है. What about larger companies? I don't know. I've never worked in a Microsoft and Amazon. I have friends who have. I'm not going to explain this. Like, eh, we can talk about this. I don't have much knowledge on it, very honestly. But it's mostly like they expect you to have lots of technical knowledge, way beyond what a startup would ask, and they really need you to be like fitting their team profile. So there will be rounds after rounds of like checking team cooperation ability or so-called culture fit. My friends in Amazon have actually given 2 rounds of culture fit, like 1 hour, where they're just trying to see if they fit Amazon. You know? So first the slide. Okay, thanks for like wow man, 30 minutes. That's a lot. Thanks for getting this out. Let's talk about it. This is a guideline. When we do question answer and we ask, um, there are 3 dimensions here. I have only mentioned 2 of them. Third one I have not. First is what kind of company you're getting into that. Are they very fast iterating? Are they building new products every other weekend and like making changes to their products? They are very experimental in nature. That's one axis, which I have given here. Second is how old is the company? Are they early stage or are they already have a decently sized team, right? Based on these two dimensions, right, of how fast and iterative the startup is or how structured and stable they are, and whether they are very new or very old. And the third dimension, which I have not written about here, which is how much experience do you have? Are you a fresher or are you 2 years, 3 years into the industry? What's the scene? Based on these 3 dimensions, the interview changes a lot.